This is Arif Halaby on your hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS. Hey, welcome to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. I'm Arif Halaby along with Jeff Girard, talking about your family's finances, of course, getting out of debt, managing money, and planning for your future. Seems always a little scary, right, when you're talking about trying to do the right thing and keep your family on the right financial track between everything going on, jobs, the economy, and oh my gosh, what's happening in Washington and Sacramento, and how does that impact your dollars? Every time we turn around, there's talk about the minimum wage, and oh my gosh, how horrible it is for people to work certain jobs and get paid a certain amount of money, and then oh my gosh, it's horrible with insurance and investments and the 401k world, and all of that certainly leads to stress. Well, I'm Arif Halaby along with Jeff Girard, and we're going to talk about some of the stress that you're expecting in your life and how to avoid a lot of it, which comes from, believe it or not, scam artists. They tend to walk this path where they think your money is theirs and they can steal it. Now, see, there's not much of a difference between somebody coming up to you with a gun and somebody pretending to be your friend or a governmental agency or a trusted utility and taking your money through trickery. In fact, both of those are a crime, and that trust level that most people have with that layer of authority in their life, that trust layer, when it's violated, is worse than somebody, I think, sticking a gun in your face and stealing from you, because it scares people.
Sure.
Because the relationships that they've had and the places that they've been in their life before, all of a sudden come into question their judgment. Right? When you lock the door or you don't lock the door, you go, oh my gosh, these folks broke into the window or they came in. But when it's somebody you willingly let into your life, when it's somebody that has crossed the line of trust with your family, I think there's a bit more of that. I don't know.
Well, and you're talking about somebody coming up at gunpoint. I mean, we can see that. We can identify a threat. We may not be able to do anything about it, but at least we can identify that that is a threat and we know where the line is. But what you're talking about is when people are nefarious in the way they do things, they come in under the radar, and we think that we can trust these folks, and where they really get us a lot of times is where they make us act quickly. In something like a situation where maybe you might be experiencing some financial distress, or you may not remember if you'd paid your bill or not, or something. You just kind of chalk it up to, okay, there must be a problem, and I'm going to trust what this person is saying because look, they look official. They've got badges on their clothing, or they've got identification, and they've done a really good job of disguising themselves as a trusted person, whether it's a utility or a governmental agency. And so we kind of just we trust them and we just let it happen. Look, when we're guided by them, that's where the real problem comes in.
Especially when it's safety of your family. One thing is, $10 and off it goes, or $500.
Right.
That's horrible, but safety of your family. And here's where I'm going with that. Some of you have heard the Southern California Edison, the scam, if you will, that's been taking place right here in the Santa Clarita and the Antelope Valleys. And you're seeing it happen where you're receiving a phone call. The phone call says, and sounds quite legitimate, we're doing you a favor. You forgot to pay your bill. We haven't received your payment, and we will shut off your utilities, your electricity.
Yeah.
Sometimes they say in 45 minutes. Sometimes they say we have somebody in the area, and that person is within 2 hours of your neighborhood. We're trying to give you a heads up before you actually have your utilities shut down. Well, what that does to you is it scares you.
Sure.
Now, you might say, no big deal. The pot roast we're going to thaw anyway for tonight's dinner, so that's okay. But if you have somebody in your home that is on oxygen, if you have somebody in your home that has insulin and it has to be kept refrigerated, if you have somebody in your home that's counting on electricity to save their life, a senior citizen, an injured person, an ill person, this is scary, and you will jump through all sorts of hoops to ensure that your family is safe. Now, why is that a big deal to these guys? Because they know that if they make enough phone calls, if they can threaten and scam and protect and predict, if you will, that you're going to be somebody that has something wrong somewhere, they're going to miss. They might even miss 90% of the time. But the 8 or 10 they're going to get, it's going to be scary. And here's what they're doing. So here's what, they're not dumb, right?
Right. They've done this once before.
Right. So they'll say, we have somebody in the area, and ma'am, we're doing this as a courtesy call. You've been a long-time customer, a great person, good customer, and we are going to put your utilities in off. So you say, no, please, hold on, but let me make sure. I want to talk to a supervisor. They go, hold, please. Now, they bring on, hi, this is Supervisor John from Southern California Edison. How can I help you? Well, Supervisor John is on the phone and sounds real official, and you go, okay, well, goodness, since they put on a supervisor, they must be telling me the truth. Not the case.
That's right.
These people are all trained. They know that you're going to ask for a supervisor. They even know that you might check the caller ID, and guess how they spoofed it? They've taken the caller ID and spoofed it to be Southern California Edison, which means when you call up somebody and the caller ID indicates on the computer screen and it says Southern California Edison or Total Financial Solutions, you think that's the real company that's calling you. Well, Jeff, they've actually figured out how to spoof that. I don't know how to do that. You're a technical kind of a guy.
Well, I'll tell you this. I had a buddy call me. Let me just share with you how scary technology can be and that anybody can get to it. I had a buddy call me one time from his cell phone, and I thought it was somebody else. So, Tony calls me up, but I don't think it's Tony. I think it's Benjamin. So I say, hey, Benjamin, and disguises his voice. I thought, oh, maybe he's got a cold or something. That's kind of interesting. And then he can't hold the prank too long, and he starts laughing, and he tells me how he did it. There's an app that he could buy that showed a different caller ID in my phone. Now, it just maybe happened to be that I had that gentleman's contact info, but have you ever noticed that when you answer your cell phone, some carriers do this, it'll say, a random number, a 1 and a 661 area code with a phone number. It'll say maybe, and it'll predict what it might be. So we're looking at different pieces of technology that are kind of assumptive and that they can be tweaked a little bit. Anyway, the point of all this is that it exists, and if we can get to it just to mess with our friends, imagine what these bad guys and gals can do.
There's even an app, I did some quick research while Jeff was talking, there's even an app that can spoof a text, which means you can get a text from somebody else, really that's not the case.
Yeah.
Spoof text. You can even spoof phone numbers. So here's what that means. You're going to be sending it from your phone number to somebody else, and in doing so, they're going to think that somebody else is sending the text or the call. Even what they've done, this particular scam with Southern California Edison is so advanced that when you hang up and call back, you say, you know what, what's the phone number? Let me call you back. They're going to give you the legitimate phone number. And when they do that, you're going to call back. And what are you going to do? Do you think they're going to answer the phone, Joe's Plumbing? Of course not.
No.
They're going to answer the phone Southern California Edison. And that particular scam and that way that phone system is put together, the only way that I think you can avoid it, and this may still be a long shot, but it's to go off of the bill that you have or directly to the Edison website.
Yeah, great advice.
Find the phone number that's there. Who cares what phone number they call, but ask for their name, ask for their number. Maybe they have an employee number or their first and last name. And then what you do is you call directly through a different source. I don't want you to use the phone number they're going to provide to you. Of course, it's like, Jeff, I'm completely honest. You know how you can find out for sure? Just ask me.
Just ask me.
Right. It's like,
right.
Does it make sense to even do that? No, but that's how they do it. So.
Well, he sounded so nice.
He did. Yeah. He did. And he was sweet. We had a particular scam artist that called a client of ours, and we often will get in the middle of this, especially if it's our elderly and our senior clients. And she's like, Arif, I'm not really sure, but is this a legitimate thing or not? So she sat at my, it was a credit card company asking for a payment, and she thought she had paid it, and there was no way to double check at the moment. So we're sitting in my office, so we call on the phone number that is provided, and we call it on the speakerphone. And then the lady says, you know what, let me double check that. She was so sweet. My goodness, sounded like somebody's granddaughter, of course.
Sure.
Just as sweet and cute as can be and pleasant and polite. Oh, no, so she said, well, why don't you hold just a second? Let me check with my supervisor. Well, she forgot to put us on hold.
Oh, my goodness.
So I muted our cell phone, our speakerphone, because we were talking anyway. And as we were waiting, but all of a sudden we heard talking in the background, and I guess she forgot to put us on hold, or she did, and it came back off of hold. But meanwhile, our side is muted because we were going to talk anyway, just in case they
Yeah.
came back before we could tell. And we're listening to her. The mouth of a sailor, as they say.
Oh my goodness.
Calling this lady all sorts of bad names and making fun of her and making fun of her name. And
That's awful.
we're going, you got to be kidding. And talking to a guy, and you can hear faintly a man's voice in the background. And you hear them kind of carrying on. And we couldn't believe it. Both of us were like, oh my goodness, can you imagine that? And all of a sudden, of course, the phone comes back alive. And I don't know if she realized. She didn't seem to indicate that she realized that she had not hit the hold button, and starts, oh, hi, Mrs. Smith, how are you? And we just couldn't believe it. And we thought, this is a scam.
Yeah, how do you go forward from that?
Yeah, and fortunately, we were able to find out it was a scam early before she had given any credit card information or any kind of knowledge of her personal information, which was very helpful. Because there are very few times you're going to receive a phone call when it's urgent. And I just had this, it happens all the time, but I just had a phone call an email from a longtime friend and client who said, hey, and the gentleman is Filipino, so this was kind of legitimate, He said, hey, I came to visit family in the Philippines. I got stuck here. My wallet and passport were stolen. I need a little bit of money to come home. If you can, send me some money through Western Union, I'm able to do it. I think he said my grandmother was sick, and we got a whole story. So my goodness, it sounded horrible.
Yeah.
So I thought, Ron, did this really happen? So I'm looking through this, and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't sound like the way he would speak. He was quite an educated person, and there were some things to this that said it wasn't really that educated. And I thought, let me just send him a message. So I sent him a message through a different route, through a cell phone, and then I also responded to the email, and I responded to his email directly, and I said, your email has been hacked, and immediately it came back, and they shut down his email, and
Oh my.
they didn't accept it, and of course it really wasn't true. He wasn't in the Philippines. He was happy in Palm Springs enjoying life without any issues.
But there are people out there that will act on something like that without maybe thinking that they should check it and go a different route. And luckily there was, some broken text in there or broken English that caused you to think, well, this might not be him, so I better check. But sometimes they're really good at what they do.
And I think part of that's important is to realize that it isn't urgent. I guess if somebody is, tied to a chair and being pistol whipped with a 45 or beat with a rubber hose or something, okay, I'll send you the money. But besides that, if they're in jail in the middle of who knows where, they can wait 15 minutes for you to verify.
Yeah.
Look, if the guy's in jail, the 15 minutes is a lifetime. I get it, especially if you're in Mexico or someplace. But you're going to hear these stories. I'm stuck in a jail in Tijuana. I'm stuck in a jail in Cancun, or I got stuck in a hotel in who knows where, Ecuador.
Well, apparently on the other side of the world, and I've gotten several messages about this same rich prince that's a relative of mine.
I know.
And I just have to
Maybe we're cousins, because he said I'm a relative too.
The funny part is that, it sounds legitimate, and then at the end it'll say, no, I need your complete confidence and cooperation, and you can't tell anybody about this or something like that. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Why can't I share this with anybody?
There was a story of a guy who would bait these guys and would go online and, okay, I'm going to send it. Okay, I sent it. And they call back 15 minutes later. We went down to this corner of Western Union and we didn't receive it. You didn't? Okay, let me try it again. All right, I'm going to send it tomorrow. And he would keep these guys on the line going over and over and over again. And, in some cases, at the end, they laugh together and they both realize that they've created, that this is a scam. And that I know that you know. And,
right.
I think a big part of this, you guys, is to realize the IRS doesn't send you an email. They don't call you on the phone. They send you a letter. Usually it's registered letter. How do I know that? Because in the late 90s, I was audited. No big deal. It all got taken care of. It cost me $1,000 for my CPA to handle it, because you don't ever want to go to an audit. Trust me on this. You send your accountant, or you better have an accountant, or certainly a CPA of some caliber, who's used to doing this. You don't want to go yourself because it's not what you do. You wouldn't ask your accountant to come and do your job, right? It's their job. So we said, look, they questioned a particular thing that we wrote off. I think it was my cell phone or something. So we said, okay, well, here's the backup of my business, and here's what we do. This is 20 years of business for us now. So back then it was, I don't know, 5 years or something, 3 years. So here's our business. Okay, no problem. But the IRS doesn't send you an email and say, you better pay your taxes or else we're going to take your bank accounts.
And they certainly don't call you and ask you for your checking and routing number or a credit card for that matter.
Yeah. There are times, if you are initiating the call, if you're trying to settle a claim with the IRS, if you're trying to settle a claim with the bill that is owed, like Southern California Edison or the Water District or whatever it might be, then great. But be very careful. This has hit in the last 2 weeks nearly, at least that I know of, over a dozen people right here in Santa Clarita, which means if I know it's a dozen and maybe it's 100, I don't know.
Sure.
So these folks are very prolific. They probably get a list. It would be interesting to find out where they're calling from if it's all one part of the world. They generally call without an accent, so they're usually Americans, or at least those that were educated in America, and so they don't have an ethnic accent of one specific region of the world, and they are good. They train just like you train for your job. They train every single day. They role play. They do that. If you say this, I say that. They go through this back and forth. How many of you don't even put that kind of effort in your own work, right? How many of you take no for an answer and you go, you're in sales, you think you're in sales. You've never read a sales book in your life. You've never role played with anybody in your life, and you call yourself a salesman or a saleswoman. These scam artists are way better than that. They read books on how they take a good, honest sales book and they turn it into, I think, an evil and a dirty profession, which is scamming people. So be very careful out there. These people are good at what they do. They train. We used to talk about this in law enforcement, where bad guys wake up every morning and their job is to train how to take your life or take your stuff. And how many policemen, get overweight, eat junk food, smoke, drink, don't sleep well, don't work out, and you go, really, you're supposed to, just because you have this little tiny badge on your shoulder, that's supposed to protect you? That ended a long time ago. There's no more respect for law enforcement the way it used to be. And I remember at the time, this is going back in the 80s and 90s, when I traveled to Great Britain, I remember that the law enforcement officials in London did not have guns.
Oh.
Yeah, they were the London bobbies, right? Today they do, but back then they didn't. They would have these long sticks, and they were usually, and they had a height limit. I want to say it was 6 feet, maybe higher.
Or a minimum of 6 feet?
Minimum of 6 feet.
So they wanted big people.
Big guys. And they were all looked the same, all big guys. And then they had a hat that made them look like, 6 inches or a foot taller.
Right.
And they would walk around, and they would chase you. Man, I remember walking down Oxford Street when I was 21 years old, and these people come running and jumping, and they, I don't know what the guy was doing, but they caught this guy. The moment they put hands on him, it's over. You can run, and you can get away, but if they touched you, it was like a game of tag on a schoolyard. It was over. In the United States, right, so a year later, I'm on the streets of LA. You touch somebody, the fight's on.
Right.
Like, whoa, what's this? I thought we were supposed to, there's no different set of rules. So that love for law enforcement, that respect, that line that says, you don't beat me up and I don't fight, and that left a long time ago. We're now in this game, if you will, of survival. So keep in mind that your objective is to protect your stuff. Law enforcement's going to take care of you in some respects, but they cannot be everywhere. That's why, people have guns in their homes,
Sure.
Not to go hunting. We don't hunt as much as we used to as a society.
Right.
We use them for personal protection, to protect you and your family. Not because law enforcement is bad, it's just because there's very few of them. And I don't care if they really, really, really want to help you. There's traffic lights and people walking across the street between here and the station, and between here and them when they receive the call. So it's going to take them a while to get to you. So all of these things to say is, whether it's a physical violence, whether it's scam artists, the responsibility is back in your pocket. It's you. You have to go to school and learn. You have to trust that gut. There is a sixth sense and that instinct. Jeff, we call it something for, women have
Right.
something they call it. There's
The women's intuition.
Why don't they have a men's intuition? I guess they do. They call it a gut feeling.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Got a gut
No,
feeling.
we just know.
We know.
We just know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a gut feeling. Women, it's intuition. Sounds so beautiful. Women's intuition.
That's
Men,
a
we got
nice
a gut
diplomatic
feeling.
way of saying that we're wrong and they were right.
Yeah. And when you do the gut feeling, you have to kind of lift up your lip. Gut feeling. I got a gut feeling. And that's different. And then that means you really mean it. But other than that, guys, you know when something's wrong. You know when something's not right. And you got to keep this in mind. Today, with the world of Google, you can research if a company is legitimate, if an individual is legitimate. You know, you can research. They give you a phone number, right? What's the phone number? You can pull up your Google on your cell phone or your laptop or wherever you are, put it in and see if a scam alert comes up on it. Often, if that number's been used before, people will put it on Google as a scam alert.
That's right. There's a whole blog out there. Different websites will do this, and you'll get to see the feedback from different people that have taken that call. Some people will say, this is a sales call, or it's from XYZ company, or whatever they reference, and you can start to see some patterns there where this number's been used more than once. And typically, it's some cell phone that they've masked and changed the caller ID if that's what came up.
Yes, and you're going to see this happen. It kind of cycles through, right? It happens about every year. We had it in October 2014, kind of right in September, October. We had it in April or May of 2015. We had it again in this month, right? May 2000, and maybe that's what it is. May has become Santa Clarita. They have a route.
Maybe that's it.
Like this water delivery guy or the
mail carrier.
Now it's scam artist.
Scam artist.
What area are you covering today, Bill? Oh, I got the Northeast. All right, great. Who you taking? I'm taking little old ladies from Boston. Nice. I'm looking at little old men from Palm Springs. Keep in mind, folks, that these guys are not your friends. I know that often you're going to have people that will call you for legitimate reasons. You've put the request out there. They're calling you. They're confirming appointments, delivery dates, different things that you have initiated. Great. Be cautious. Don't be rude to them. But they're the ones that are supposed to call you. But unfortunately, some of these scam artists out there are really crossing the line. We'll be back in just a minute. We're going to cover this and a whole lot more